Thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, Monica, so much of what you said just really touched me. So thank you. I'd love to have more conversation with you at some point. I really would. Thank you. Okay, so this is all information packed, and it's fast, and it's lots and lots of different contributions. But I just want to change the tempo a little. And I just want us to take a minute, and what I'd like you to do, wherever you are, whoever you are, just want to take a minute, just kind of come out of your mind, come into your heart, close your eyes, and think about the many, many, many conversations that you've had, personally and professionally. All the different people that you've interacted with, and think about the ones that went well and the ones that went badly and the ones that you never followed up on. I just want us to slow down a little, because sometimes less is more. And what I want to start off by telling you a real kind of value that I sit on. It's kind of one of my quotes, and that is, I want to live in a world where every single person takes responsibility for everything they say and everything they do. So, and what I've learned is that in order for us to do that, we need to be in a different space, a space where we can look after each other, even if we're on different sides of the argument. That's really, for me, that's the key to, I don't know best, we know better. And so one of the things in my work that I've been studying or researching and practicing and looking at was, why do we fight? Why do we get into arguments? Why do people fall out with each other? Well, it's clearly stupid. It's a stupid thing to do, is to fall out with each other. Especially when ongoing relationships are important. And so one of the things that I learned and I'll probably tell you a bit about my work and where I've been in a bit if there's time, is that because we are so enamoured and we highly prize things like academia and science and the legal profession and the government and all of those things, and theology and the military, they're all like our gold standards that we're all supposed to be aiming for. And what I learned was that the model for conversation in those disciplines is debate. And the whole idea is that in a debate is that it's argument and counter-argument, with the idea that one argument will prevail over all others. And that's great if you and I decide that we want to stretch ourselves and we want to test ourselves to the limits. I mean, we have in schools, we have debating societies where we encourage children to be good arguers. But I see nowhere collaboration societies. I don't see in workplaces anywhere where people are given promotions or praised or measured on their ability to collaborate with others. I find that extraordinary. And the reason that I find it extraordinary is because nothing happens without relationship. Unless you want to live on your own in a cave, nothing happens without there being at least a relationship with one other person, or a group of people, or many people, some of whom you can't even see or meet. And actually, when we think about this addiction that we have to a competitive conversation, to a debate rather than a dialogue, when we think about that, what we're not paying attention is actually nothing will get done unless there is some relationship. So I can outwit you in a conversation. I can use my intelligence, my charm, my powers of influence and persuasion, and I can knock you over, and I can win the argument, and I can even coerce you and convince you to think the way I do. And when it goes to shit, I have no relationship to rely on. And so when I do that, I damage something called goodwill. Because people are not stupid, and they know when they're being conned. So what I'm suggesting actually is that we never learned how to have a dialogue, because when human emotions are involved, debate is absolutely useless. Debate only works when we have stripped away any form of connection to the relationship. So it's one mind against another. But I'm not just my mind. I'm my mind and my heart. I'm my mind and all of the emotions that we've been taught not to express. But just because we don't express them, they are residing in me, and they are going to find a way out. So when we very carefully craft our debate and see other people as the enemy or the people to be persuaded, then I'm not saying don't do that. I'm not telling anyone what to do. What I'm saying is expect that people are going to be pissed off with you. Expect that there will be messes to clear up. So the funny thing for me is that many people, many of us, will escalate an argument with no plan for what we're going to do when it's reached its peak. Absolutely no plan. And at that point, you can't then turn around to someone and say, can't we just talk about this? So for me, there's something about the power of dialogue, and it's kind of interesting because I get invited into all sorts of different industries and places. So, you know, I was once talking to 150 of the world's most renowned psychiatrists in schizophrenia. I was talking to concentration camp survivors. I've been into management consultancies, been into prisons, schools. I even spent 2 years shadowing someone working with gangs, in like literally street gangs. And the one thing is that wherever you go, when things go wrong, so when, you know, the proverbial shit hits the fan and things go down, it isn't so much about what went wrong. It's about how everyone's going to react to it. So if you're in a hierarchical domination culture, power over structure, what you're likely to do is you're likely to try and cover things up. You know, it's less likely that people are going to honestly say, this is my bad, hands up, when there is a lot at stake. So one of the things we need to get to is we need to have safe spaces where there is trust, where we can call on the goodwill of our relationships when things go wrong. And most of our workplaces and most of our consultative processes and most of the things that we do are all based on the idea that we don't really know how to clear things up, because I describe this as putting in the plumbing, putting in the communication plumbing. We never put the plumbing in the first place. So we've got no idea where the sewerage is going. And believe me, in the debate model, there's a lot of sewage. So what happens is people muddle along because everybody starts everything with the best of intentions. But what we know is that when people gather, at some point, even with the best intentions, there is going to be disagreement, diversification of how to go about things. And then we don't know how to cope. We've got no strategy, we've got no skill, we've got no model. And you can't then start taking people by surprise and saying, well, we're going to solve it this way. So for me, there's really something about communication, relationship comes first. Putting in the plumbing by consent comes next, and then we can begin the dialogue. So where this works particularly, I mean, you know, I'm thinking about this being something about responsible resources and the mining industry, or, you know, whatever, is I'm assuming that in that world, there's a lot of consulting with diverse stakeholders. And in my experience of that, a lot of it is very them and us, when it should be we. So, I mean, I've got something going on where I live. HS2 tunnel is coming right under my house. And because we only ever get communicated with by these very austere looking forms that seem very complicated, and I know they say they have a helpline that you can call anytime, but, you know, as a group of neighbours, you know, we're all getting together and trying to figure out what we can do, because we're fearing the big power that's just going to do what it wants anyway. And that's completely stupid. It's like, it's not a great place. It's not a great place to start from. So one of the things I've learned is that when we understand these kinds of skills, and I developed a communication tool called the Dialogue Roadmap. And I train people to use the Dialogue Roadmap, because what I do not want to be the one that's called in to do this work. What I like to do is go into communities and workplaces and organizations and say, let's skill a number of your people up so that you can actually do this. And I mean, one example that has nothing to do with this industry, but I'm very proud of it. I went into a prison. I've been going into prisons for a long time. I found a very receptive prison governor, and we asked the question, if you have 650 prisoners and 100 staff, and you put all the responsibility for safety into the hands of 100, aren't you making their job much more difficult than it needs to be? Aren't they likely to use more force than is necessary? So what happens if you go to the 650 and say, we want you to take some responsibility for safety? And over 5 years, we turned Dartmoor Prison from being notorious into one of the safest jails in the UK prison estate. So what's that got to do with, you know, where we are here? It's all about relationships, all about meeting people where they are. It's all about understanding, having empathy, and beginning to allow people to have their say and not have to suppress stuff and then act it out. So, you know, I'm one of those people. I could talk for England and Malta. I'm Maltese. I could talk for Europe, but I understand we only want a few minutes. I've tried to sort of slow this down a bit. I really would prefer that this went into more of a dialogue. So I'm going to stop here and invite some questions. And Sarah, you can tell me where we go next.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Maria, especially in terms of just slowing us all down and allowing us to have a little bit of, I guess, self-reflection time as well, and work out who are we and what are we thinking, what are we feeling. So I think, I mean, just and apologies, because actually our time is so tight, which I realize is is the polar opposite to everything you've just been saying, and my sincere apologies for that. But in terms of the dialogue roadmap, where can we find out more about that? Because I'm again receiving loads of messages behind the scenes saying this is brilliant. So where can we find out more, Maria?
So you can just Google me, Maria Arpa, ARPA, and I will show up. And the charity that I founded, that I do all of my work through, is called the Centre for Peaceful Solutions. So if you put in Centre for Peaceful Solutions, we should come up quite easily. And if you email from there, it comes direct to me. Don't tell anyone I said that. And just to make you laugh, the initials are the CPS, which of course is the Crown Prosecution Service. That was my deliberate jibe at the power over systems that we're forced to live with. Thank you.
Fantastic. That is absolutely brilliant. And so, ladies and gents, please do feel free to engage with Maria. So many questions and absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much, Maria. Round of applause. That's absolutely brilliant. Brilliant. So